Quiltoni, and today we're going to make a foundation paper piece present. I've been doing a lot of foundation paper piecing lately, so this tutorial is going to take you step by step on making my pattern, the present. If you haven't picked this up yet, it's only $2 on my website. It's a downloadable PDF, so it's yours forever. So let's get into it and let me show you how we're making the present. First thing you want to do with the present block is I include this 1-inch block on all my patterns. You want to measure this. Let's make sure that this is in fact 1 inch. So it's 1 inch wide, 1 inch long. It's a lovely 1-inch square. And this is your, just make sure that everything is going to be the correct size. If this is not 1 inch and you do want a 6-inch finished block, make sure that you check the settings on your printer and you check the settings on your computer. More information on what the settings should be can be found in this pattern. Now, if you want to resize this block, what you want to do is let's say if you want to make it bigger, turn this onto landscape, and what you want to do is increase this by the percent that you want to make it. So for example, if you would like a 12-inch finished block, well, that's double the size. So from 100%, you're going to double it to 200%, double the size. If you want to make this a 3-inch finished block, make it teeny, reduce this by 50%. So instead of 1 inch, it's going to be a 2-inch block. Instead of 1 inch, it'll be a 1/2-inch block. So it'll do the math depending upon how you're going to size that. Now, after you make sure that you have the size that you like, let's cut out our pieces. Now, this one's a pretty easy one. We only have 3 pieces that we are sewing together. So we're just going to cut out our paper. Now, I have my paper printed on special foundation paper piecing paper. You can actually find a link to it down below. It is a lot lighter. It is easier. It's much easier to remove when you're doing the actual paper removal at the end. All right, so we've got our papers. Now we need to cut our pieces out. So initially I did this one. I did these colors for the present. I've decided I'm switching it up a little bit. I'm going to do a black background, a gold ribbon, and a red present, just to show you the different ways that you can do this. The pattern itself, though, is based upon my sample with these colors. So I'm going to go through and cut all of my pieces right now. We'll speed up the video, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to start assembling it. One thing I'm going to tell you before I actually get into that cutting of the fabric, for organization, what I'm going to do is all of the A pieces, as I cut my fabric pieces, I'm going to place them here in this area. So I know that these are all my A pieces, these are all my B pieces, these are all my C pieces, and I have found it's just easier with the organization for the different units for cutting all the things. Something else you can do for fabric organization is you can just cut the A1, B1, C1. Cut A2, B2, C2. You can cut the fabrics as you're starting to assemble. You don't have to sit and cut all of your fabrics to start out with at first, like I do. My fabric is cut out and organized into piles. Now you may have seen that I started marking onto this. I actually, because I changed my colors, I actually wrote it in what my new colors would be. That way I didn't confuse myself as I was laying these out. And then as I was doing the black ones, there were so many of them, I wanted to mark off to make sure that I had them done. So that's what I was doing with those. All right, so let's start with our A section. And we're going to start with our A1. Now our A1, what you want to do is take a look at the color sheet to see what it is. In the color sheet, it is this one right here. So it's our black. So A1, we then refer back to here, is our 5" by our 3" black piece. So that's this piece right here. Let me just double check to make sure it is. What we want to do is we want to add a touch. Now you don't have to use glue in this part. You can actually use a pin if you like. I find it's easier to get started and it's not going to slip if I put a touch of water-soluble glue, of paper piecing glue, and then set it there. Now you want to make sure that your fabric is wrong side to wrong side. Remember, the color of your fabric is the right side, and that is the right side because you see the numbers. So we've glued this together, wrong side to wrong side. All right, and it's nice and centered. Then we're going to turn this, and we're going to fold between A1 and A2, which is this line right here. So we're going to take this line, and I'm going to fold this over all the way across. All right, it doesn't make a difference that the line stops right there. Fold this all the way across, and then we're going to take our straight edge, and we're going to trim a 1/4 inch from the end. All right, so 1/4 inch from the end. Open this back up again. And then we want to take a look at A2. A2 is our gold 2" by 4" piece, one of these. So we want to take this, and we're going to lay this down right along the edge that we just trimmed. Now we want to make sure that we cover this entire thing right here, because as the instructions say, you want to make sure that as you do this, it covers all of A2. And if you lay it down just like this, it does. So now we're going to take this, and you can either add a bit of glue right here, or you can pin it in place. Either one is perfectly okay. During this step, I actually like to use pins. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. And I like to skip around with these videos with the instructions to make it the most time efficient as possible. So we're going to go on to B1. So let's set these aside. So these are my A's. So we're going to take a look at the B's. That B1 in the center is the gold 2" by 2" piece. So same exact thing. We're going to take this. I'm going to add a touch of glue in the center of B1. And then we're going to center that B1 fabric over top of it. Just like that. And then I'm going to fold between B1 and B2. So I'm folding this fabric so that I can see the wrong side of the fabric. The paper is folded, the fabric is not. And then I'm trimming a 1/4 inch away, opening this back up. Our B2 fabric is the 2" by 3". In my case, it's the red. If you're following the instructions, in your case, it is the green. Whatever your B2 fabric is. And we're going to pin this and set that aside. And now the C. So let me group this right here. Now for the C, C1 is in the center right here. So grab your C1 piece. Mine is the gold. Fantastic. And you're going to place it just right there in the center, just like that. So let me go ahead and flip this over. Remember, you are gluing the wrong side of the fabric to the wrong side of the paper. Okay? And our C2 is on this side. Let's fold that. Trim a 1/4 inch away. Open it back up again. Our C2 fabric is the 3" by 4". So we're going to lay that here. Now you notice how this is the first time the fabric doesn't completely cover the original fabric. that is perfectly okay. So what you want to do is line it up along the edge that you just cut. And you want to make sure that it's centered over C2. So this right here is completely centered over C2. And then pin it in place. And there is our first step of the 1s and the 2s. So now we're going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how we're sewing these. Alright, we want to now sew between the A1, the A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. How you do that, make sure that you lower your stitch length on your sewing machine to a 1.6. I actually have a video all about stitch length and how you lower it, how you find it, things like that. Videos linked down below and on my YouTube channel. Make sure your stitch length is 1.6, and then what you want to do is we're going to start about a 1/4 inch away. So in this case, that's about a 1/4 inch away. You do not need to go back and forth and lock your stitches in. Because we've started so far away, it is perfectly fine. So then I'm going to go down, all the way down, and I'm going to sew past that dotted line. Because the dotted line is our trim line for our, man, words are hard. I can't think today. For our seam allowance. So we're actually going to trim it down to a 6.5, which is a half inch, the half inch, 1/4 inch all the way around, total of half inch for the seam allowance. Man. All right, so same one with B1 and B2. So this is why I have the fabric so long in this case. So it's easy to start and stop beyond those dotted lines. And then C1 and C2. Now, I am sewing in the middle of C6. Perfectly okay. That is perfectly fine when you do that. There we go. Wonderful. And then now, let's go back to the cutting mats and iron it. Take a look at the 4. So our A4 is right here. Same thing. I've got a bit of the thread, so I'm going to hold the thread and then pull it a little bit. Now, as you're pulling it back, if you get a little bit of the paper in there, that is perfectly okay. You can either take it out right now so you don't forget to do it later, or whenever you're pulling the paper out at the end, at that point, you can then take a look at it and pull that out. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and fold this. Trim this. And as I'm looking at it, I think we can do A5. Because, see, if that's folded, we can do A5 at the same time. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and pull this away. Because that's going to be the most efficient use of our time at the sewing machine and the ironing board. So let's fold that and trim that and open these up. Okay, and then so this is A4 and A5 are the 1.5 by 3s. So that's these, 1.5 by 3. Yep, that's it. All right, so in this case, our A4's at the top. So we want to make sure that we cover it enough so that everything is covered, including all the area around where the dotted lines are. Okay, so let me make sure that that is all lined up correctly. And then I'll pin into place. Okay, and then over here, the same thing with this side. Make sure that if I fold it, it covers it completely and the top area. There we go. Come on. There we are. All right. There's our A. Our A's are done. All right. So let's take a look at B's. I may be able to do the same thing with B4 and B5. So we'll take this. Yep, I can definitely do this with B4 and B5. Let's be efficient and do 2 at the same time. Come on. Stay. There we are. It was a little wonky, you know, moving a bit, so I just had to make sure that it was fine. All right, and then I believe it's these right here, our B4 and B5, the 1.5 by 2s. Yes. Okay, and then if I go this way, perfect. So we're lining up the 2-inch edge. So our goal, remember, is to always make sure that we are covering the area for where we're going. Same thing, I'm going to do the C4 and C5 at the same time. And that's why I try to number them the way that I do. The more patterns that I'm making, the more that I'm doing, the easier it is getting for me, and the more efficient I can be, and the better with the designs I can get. So a bunch of these, if you notice, I've done them in a way that you can do multiple pieces at the same time. Let's open this up. All right, our C4 and our C5 are the 2-inch by 4-inch. So it should be these two. Yep, there we are. Let's lay this down. Just like that. And then turn it around. All right, so now let's take it to the sewing machine and let's sew these, come back, iron them, and I'll show you the next ones to add on. So we have finished all the way up to A5. So now I'm going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go 6 and 7, and then 8 and 9. So 6 and 7 we're going to add these two on there. And then for the C, I'm going to show you this one because this one's a little bit tougher. Remember how I said you need to pull back? So you have to do it on every single one of these seams. So hold, make sure you're holding the seam. That way you don't accidentally pull any of the thread out. And then fold this back. Just like that. Now you've got to be slow and careful because you don't want to rip this paper right here. So we're going to fold this back. And then we're going to go ahead and trim this our 1/4 inch. And grab our C6 piece, lay it down. Now remember, we want to make sure that we cover all of the dotted lines. So center it to your paper, not to the fabric that's on here. Okay, and then let's pin this. Now for the B piece, we're completely done. There's nothing else. So I'm actually going to take this and set that aside until both A and C are finished as well. And once A and C are finished as well, then we'll do all 3 of those pieces trimming at the same time. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and trim, I'm going to take care of the A6 and A7. I'm going to take all these to the sewing machine, sew them, iron them, come back, and show you the last two of A8 and A9. So our C is now done, so I'm going to set that aside with the B. So let's take a look at A. We still have to do our A8 and A9. So let's take care of that now. So I'm going to fold this away. Same thing down here. Remember, whenever you're pulling it away, hold the thread and then pull. There we are. We've got it. Now, this right here, because this one's a little tricky, if you want to remove this piece right there completely, that's perfectly fine. If that makes it easier for you to then fold this back, you totally can do that. You don't need that center piece. We have finished with all three of our units, so now we're going to trim them. I have my paper rotary cutter. Make sure if you use rotary cutter for this step, use a paper rotary cutter. Do not use the same blade as your fabric, or else you're going to dull the blade and it's going to go dull faster. Now what we want to do is we want to either cut it along the dotted line, or you can measure a 1/4 inch from the edge of the lines. Wow, I can't say words today. So we're going to go around and we're just going to trim a 1/4 inch from the edge of the lines, or you can just trim right on those dotted lines if you want. I like to be precise. So I like to go a 1/4 inch from the solid lines. I may go a little bit extra just in case, just to make sure I've got them. All right, so there is our C unit. Doesn't that look a lot nicer now that that's trimmed? All right, let's take a look at the A unit. Oops. It's fine, it's the edge. Now, you want to make sure that the pieces that are connecting to each other, so the bottom of the A, the both top and bottom of the B, and the top of the C block are cut precisely, because those are the ones where you're sewing the units to each other. Here we are. And here is our A block. So I'm going to set these over here, and let's trim our B. And there is our B block. Now you notice how it's a little off right here. That's because these also include seam allowances. All right, so now we get to sew it all together. Now there's one big issue with this though, because we've been ironing away from the center. You see how the seams point out? Well, the seams also point out here. I'm going to show you the trick of lining it up. So if you were to line this up, you are going to have extra bulky seams in there. Well, let's go ahead and take the paper out of here. So we're going to go ahead and remove our paper from our B units. And then once we remove our paper from our B units, we're going to re-iron it. We're going to re-iron these nice crisp seams. So instead of going out, we're going to iron it in. You can totally re-iron the seams. It makes it a lot easier and nicer. All right, so let's warm this up for a moment. There we are. Let's get some steam in there. And then same for this side. Okay, and then I'm going to iron on this side just to make sure those seams are nice and crisp, and then iron on this side. And now, when we go to line everything up, those seams are going to be perfect. All right, so let's go A to B first. What we want to do is take our A and fold it over on the B, because we can't do it on this side because we don't have a line that's guiding us anymore. Our line is on this side. So go ahead and lay this down. Make sure, now what's really nice is if you did take out that center triangle, you can center that triangle right in the very center of there. So you see how that triangle is nice and centered in there? Okay, and then we're going to put a pin in there. So that's nice. And then let's go down and put a pin on the end and put a pin on the end. All right, let's take this to the sewing machine and let's sew this. Just like with the others, we want to sew right along this solid line right here. But I am going to go ahead and use my scrap. So I'm going to use a little bit of chain sewing just to make sure that I really get the seams in here nice. So I'm going to put that in there, and now I'm going to sew right along that solid line. There we are. All the way down. And then let's go ahead and free that chain piece and put it back in again to get our piece. All right, now when we iron this, I find it's easier to go ahead and just iron towards the piece that doesn't have any paper in it. There it is. There you are. And there's our piece. Oh, I got a little bit of thread. There we go. There's our presents. All right, so now let's do the other side. So same exact thing. We're going to take this and flip the top on the bottom. Now, here's the thing. Because I Uh-oh. Did that flip? It flipped the wrong... Oh, man. Because when I re-ironed it, I apparently flipped it the wrong way. And so it went all the same direction instead of going in like I thought it did. That's okay. I'm going to actually do something you're not supposed to do and force this down and create a twist in there. It's going to create more bulk on my back, which is a little... See, it's going to create a bit of a twist. So it's going to create bulk. But you know what? You're not going to see it on the front, and my seam's going to be perfect. So I'm going to force this the opposite direction and pin it. There we are. And then force that and pin it. Now, for these two, it doesn't make a difference. These two, it's not going to line up perfectly because remember, this part on the top is longer than the next part. So if these seams don't line up, if they're the same, that doesn't make a difference. It was only these two that made a difference. So we'll do that. Now I am putting pins in on this side. That way I can see exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But I am, when I sew it, I'm going to flip it over and sew this side. Okay? So it is perfectly okay to line everything up and pin it on this side, but don't sew this side because you can't see your lines. We're going to take this to the sewing machine. We're going to flip it on this side, and I'm going to sew this line right there. Come back and iron it and show it to you. And there's our perfect seams. See what I mean? How that perfectly lines up? And I can feel there's a bit of a bulk back there. But you know what? With foundation paper piecing, you're gonna get more bulk than with your normal regular piecing. So at this point, pull all the paper out. And then we'll square it up. So whenever you're pulling your paper out, make sure I actually pop this just a touch just to be able to get this paper. And then you can pull that away. You are going to get little pieces of paper that are left over in there. And that is why you get a nice good pair of tweezers if you foundation paper piece. My favorite are the Famore 507s because they have an angled tip and they're really sharp right here. And it's really easy to get in there and get the pieces out that you need to get out for the extra paper. So at this point, I'm going to get all of my paper out. I'm going to speed the video up. We'll come back, we'll square it up, and then we'll finish up. And there's our present. So all we do at this point is we want to square this up to 6.5 inches. If you followed along the lines though, it pretty much should be 6.5 by 6.5 inches. And your block is ready to be added into your project. And that's how you make the present. Hopefully you learned something, how to foundation paper piece a present. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, a bunch of things that I don't know if I have. TikTok, that's right. I'm doing my foster dogs on TikTok. Is that all my things? And Twitch. I stream live here on YouTube as well as Twitch. If you ever want to see my schedule, take a look at my Facebook or my Twitter. I have my schedule posted there at all times. And thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out and for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate it.